Hey, welcome to Third Tuesday Conversation, the ELCA Youth Ministry Network's monthly podcast. Our goal is to engage in confirmations affirming that youth ministry looks a million different ways in a million different places and with a million different experiences. I'm Alex LaChapelle coming to you from the Upper Peninsula in Marquette, Michigan.
Hey, this is Veronica coming from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
And this is Jessica coming to you from Katy, Texas. So back in January, friends, we were recording live at the Youth Ministry Extravaganza. And one of those interviews was with Pastor Janelle Hooper, who serves as the Director of Children's Ministries for the ELCA, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And she shared with us, oh my gosh, this was a great conversation, some really helpful insight from a recent study that was done through Barna in partnership, I believe, with the ELCA. And it's insights about parents and faith and our neighborhoods. And, you know, what does this mean for us, for the people that work with and through churches? So we're excited to jump into this conversation.
Well, it's so fun. I feel really honored we have Janelle with us here today. And, you know, because Janelle does work that's really close to my heart. And I'll just say this. When I first started in ministry, I was 17, just out of high school, and they were really dumb and hired me at a church. And I think the thing that I didn't realize when I started was that if you do children, youth, and family ministry, your parents, primary caregivers, the grandparents, right, whoever is caring for those kids on a day-to-day basis should be your partners, right? Like, you should be helping equip them. You should be learning from each other, because they still are the ones that have the most influence on their kids' faith life, right? Regardless of what they do or fail to do, right? Or don't do. And I think it took me a long time to realize that. And then it really became a core part of, right, how I did my ministry. And so this is work that you care a whole lot about too, Janelle. I mean, personally as a parent, but also as a professional in ministry, as a pastor. So tell us a little bit about this study, because this is so awesome and such helpful information for us, right? So, like, tell us about the study, and then I want to hear all the ways that this can help us and help, you know, our youth ministers and pastors.
So the ELCA partnered with the ELEA, the Evangelical Lutheran Education Association, which serves our 1,300 or so schools and early learning centers. And we hired Barna, which is a Christian research group, to help us dig deep into what are young parents in need of. How can we meet their faith formation needs? And so we spent the last year researching and doing case studies and talking with people from all across our country. We specifically wanted to make sure we touched on the LGBTQ plus IA folks, so that was an intentional researching area on our part. And we came up with tons of information that we have on elcaschools.org, where you can find just all the data you want to know, all the numbers, all the quotes, all the good stuff. But what you can also find there is a Nurturing Faith Study series that really brings it down to the key findings of the study that you could use with your church council, with your staff, with your school or early learning center, with your parents that you just talked about, like talking with parents, like, this is what we've heard our needs of parents. Does this resonate with you? What makes sense to you in your local setting?
What a great, like, jumping off place, right? To start that conversation. If you're not doing anything with parents, be like, hey, you know, let's have coffee and dessert this day. And this is what we've heard about the research. What do you think of it? And then, right, that's an easy way to say, well, what's going on in your lives, right? Like, what matters to you, and how do we support you in the midst of that, right? In the light of being a faithful people, of being community together.
Yeah, we hope it takes the guessing out of it. We believe Churchwide is here to support all of the work that people are doing in a way that Churchwide uniquely can. So not everybody can do the kind of research we're able to do. So we did that, we believe, for you on your behalf. So you have the information in your back pocket. You have the data, the information you need to convince your church council or whoever that this is what they need, instead of guessing, saying, well, we think young families need. Now you can say the majority of young families are feeling overwhelmed. The majority of young families are saying they didn't know parenting was going to be this hard. The majority of parents are feeling isolated. And if that's all you know, what can we as a church do to build and come around and support those parents? And then we have more data to back that up. We have more things that talk about what they're scared of. They're scared of safety for their kids and mental health, and how can our schools and early learning centers also partner with them in terms of school safety. And we have wonderful tools on both sides, congregational and schools and early learning centers. And if we make the most of what both of them have to offer, there's a lot of tools in our toolbox that people don't have to search very hard for. We have their back. We have the information for them. We've got great ideas. We have case studies that prove that these different things are working, and are here to support in any way we can.
It's amazing because I remember in my first call, we had a Sunday morning Bible study, and you got 8 people, and it was like super chill. Then we brought in the high school counselor and said, we're just going to have them talk about like what's going on in the schools. 40 people. 40 people that don't usually come, 40 people that don't come to ed.
Yep.
Because, and well-known and active in our congregation and amazing. But I remember thinking, okay, so sometimes it's, people don't not want to hear from pastors, youth leaders in the church. But when the church says, we're not experts, but we like talking to experts, that's huge. And as somebody who has always kind of liked Barna, Barna is also the one that kind of started the conversation. There's a group of people that are so faithful, but like not in tune with the religious institution. And like they called that stuff out like clockwork. So, I mean, the fact that your information is coming from probably one of the most respected research groups in the world, you pair those two things together to offer up this idea of partnership. I think this is going to be a huge next step. And the resources, of course, they're out there, but I think when they come from the top down, what they mean is somebody, has done some of the sifting so that I don't rabbit hole on the wrong research or the wrong tools. So I'm thankful to see, and like I'm definitely going to like look at this website because I think you're right on. Like invite a couple people. You guys like cookies? Cool. Come eat cookies and let's just dive in and talk, because I think people just want to know that somebody believes that it's hard. As the guy that doesn't have kids, the hardest part about pastoring sometimes is you go, I don't know. I can only try my best to empathize.
Yeah.
But to really understand, that again, these parents are coming with all their hopes and fears, and then working with a kid with all their hopes and fears.
Yeah.
And just, showing up.
Becoming a parent is frightening. I mean, and the older they get, the more frightening it is. Let me just say that. Then they drive and don't live in your house and all of the things. And so you're like, what are they doing? Are they okay?
Are they
so
thinking
easy
about
when
me?
they can't walk and they can't talk. And, it's like, oh, that's the easy time. I will babysit anybody's baby that can't move or talk yet. So,
sounds like you're just bundling up children and staring
I like
at
them when they're older too. But I think about that, right? Like, and how frightening that is. And yet, I have 2 that now have their license, and like, you have to do a whole lot in Texas to get your license. You have to wait for 6 months after you have your learner's permit. You have to have so many hours. Do they give it and let anybody have a baby? Like there's no like helping people like actually know how to raise the child, right? Like, okay, yeah, like learn how to swaddle and put a diaper on it, but like, how do you form a human being? That's. Yeah. I was going to say something, but I will not say a bad word. That's scary stuff.
Oh.
We'll just
I caught
guess.
myself.
We'll
My
guess.
filter's on today. That's good because I hadn't had enough coffee yet.
Well, I have a question. For a lot of our churches, specifically in the urban areas or churches where the majority of our people of color, we have like a volunteer base. So how could someone, like myself, because I'm a volunteer and I want to engage parents. I want to use the website. I want to be able to identify to church council why this is important. But my church council is not aware of the ministries maybe that are going on in church-wide and how that can help us to grow our base of youth, our base of parents. How can I use the research to get more volunteers to try different ministries with children, but involve the parents as well? We have some children walk to church by themselves. Like, I've never seen their parent. We had one young lady, her name was Precious, and she would just wake herself up and just come to church. And maybe years later, I said, who's that woman with Precious? They're like, that's her mother. And so I'm like, oh. So how do we, in these different circumstances where sometimes we may never see or interact with the parent, how do we get that going as volunteers, or maybe the church is small and we want to grow our ministry? How can we use the website and this research to help us?
So this Nurturing Faith Studies series was put together with Ed Kay, who is our Senior Director of our Discipleship and Inclusive Ministries, and Corey Newman, who is our Executive Director of the ELEA. And amongst the three of us, I have to say, we have some pretty good practical ideas for you. So the Nurturing Faith Studies series is only about 20 pages-ish, and it's pretty concise going through the key findings. But there are further study pages for each one, and that's where I think our experience really shines through. We really have some great ideas and practical ideas for just those scenarios that you're talking about. Like, what does it look like for perhaps the pastor, if you're trying to build a relationship more with the church and the school or whoever, to stand out there in the morning and greet Precious? Like, what would it look like for people to offer coffee and donuts in the morning? What would it look like to offer short resources, like here's a podcast that you might want to take home to your parents, that, and just have like a little business card that they can take home? What are some like low
hanging fruit?
Yeah. It's not a low hanging fruit that's easy to just kind of be present and hand out and be a resource and to be. I think those two things are most important. Like, how in your context can you find people to be present and to provide faith formation and parenting opportunities to them in a very low-key, low-barrier kind of way. And so we have some great ideas for you there.
Ooh, I'm excited.
I love that. I mean, one of the things that I thought of as you were talking, Veronica, was, this is something that, you could read up on and bring to council and say, hey, can I do a presentation about this? And, could we have seed money, right? Like, this is so important. How do we help, have a little funding for this next year, right? As some people probably past that, but whatever. But to get those ideas out there, right? To try some new things, like, hey, could we have $500 to try some new things based on what we know? Like, we have research. I mean, everybody likes research. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have
and it's
some
hard
members
sometimes
that
to
have
trust
money.
it, but that's
I
research.
don't want research.
I know.
Our data is pretty solid, and back to, it is for churched, unchurched, and dechurched. So I think what we often find, having been in a parish for a long time, you're like, you kind of go in circles, like, what do we want? What would be good? And you're in your own little bubble. So really finding the data from the unchurched and the dechurched, I think, brings that perspective we're all are looking for.
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge data person. Like, numbers kind of go over in my head sometimes. But one of the things we learned, only 4% of people are aware of the ELCA. Like, the perceptions of the ELCA. If you go around and ask all 4 of you around the table, only less than 1 of you would have heard of the ELCA or be aware of it. It's a terrible statistic, but it also provides opportunity to say, wow, how are we going to move forward and say, we've got this amazing theology, we've got this grace and justice and all of this, so here's this fresh opportunity. Like, go wild, find your context, tell your community what you're passionate about as a faith community, and don't be so tied into whatever it has been in the past because it's not getting through to people. And so how can we, in a new, fresh perspective, and give you permission to say, use your context. If you're in the Upper Peninsula, you're going to do a sauna. Like, how are you going to talk about, like, sweat it out with God? Like, what are you going to do?
Keep going. Tell me more. Sweat it out with God. What does that look like? Give me 5 points of contact.
Yeah. So don't be shy from, I think, using your holy imagination to do it, because if you're telling people, people don't know the church, unfortunately, they really don't know. They don't know what the words Lutheran or ELCA stand for. So let's have that as our goal, not just to be known as the ELCA, but to say we want the grace and the goodness of what we do to be known in ways that have never been.
Yeah, and how cool to be known as the church, right, in their community that cares about parents and grandparents.
Exactly. Yeah,
and has
exactly.
moms group and grandparent groups and teaches you how to be a grandparent in a faithful way, and invites these opportunities, right, to really deepen in our understanding of a God who's graceful and grace-filled and merciful and all the things.
Can I ask you to do just a definition for us for de-churched? Can you just kind of throw out what do you mean by that?
Yeah, someone who has some church experience but has not been attending in the last 2 to 5 years.
Okay,
and that isn't an active part of their faith life, but they do have knowledge or experience of it from their past.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so interesting too, because the phrase is, like you said, like ELCA, as somebody who's been in the country, out of the country, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm an ELCA pastor, and they'll go, what? And you're like, never mind, I'm a pastor. Like, what? You're like, I work at a church. I think sometimes it's not dumbing it down as much as explaining it in the most real way.
Right.
Okay, you work at a church, what do you do? And then you can like break into things of like, well, this is what my day in the life looks like. And I think if your day in the life is describing, leading service, reading the Bible, but then you realize that you never tell them that you do anything in the community, that might actually be the issue in your own ministry. Start point is, when do you see people, especially people outside of your church, in your week? And like my challenge recently in the new year has been getting more active with Feeding America. And like, it's been funny, to see, like, one time I ran into some church people that were working at like, oh yeah, like, you may be active in other places, but also just being able to like meet new people in the community. And again, that means my walking around, Marquette's pretty small. Now I'm seeing people at different events that are going, hey, what's up? And it's like, how do you guys know each other? And they're like, Feeding America. And it's like, oh, whereas usually a lot of my phrases were like, how do you know each other? Church. Like, so I think it's about creating space so that you're not actually a pastor, you're a community member. And then maybe one day you are a pastor, and if you're blessed enough, lucky enough, maybe one day you'll be their pastor, but recognizing that's not the goal, right? It's the engagement. And I think these are the tools that start to grow the church in a way that doesn't worry about walls, doesn't worry about membership, worries about impact.
Yeah.
Veronica, would you say that's historically the role of the Black church, is being in the community and seen as the pastor of the community and not just the pastor of the church?
I would say so. Our pastors have been at our congregation for 35 years, so that's an achievement that few pastors reach, to be in one congregation for 35 years. But the people that I meet in the neighborhood, they know the pastors. And then I'm like, how do you know them? And they're like, oh, I went there for Girl Scouts, or I went there for food share. The mayor of our city, Sherelle Parker, when she went around and she was campaigning, and then even after she was elected, spoke about St. Peter's food ministry. This is the mayor. And she's like, oh, yeah, I was there with Pastor Gwen and Pastor Neil, and they gave me food when I needed food. And people called me and said, the mayor's talking about your church and your pastors. I said, what? Our little church. And they remembered. And they remembered.
Yeah.
And just I've just met other people that were touched by the church. They're never going to be members. They're Baptists. They're Pentecostal.
Let's just let go of that.
But but the impact of the church in people's lives. We had a head start with the school district. The impact of those children coming in the building every day, talking to those parents, working with the Girl Scouts, working with Boy Scouts, working with AA groups and Al-Anon, just saying, we're here. You could just use the building or you could come in at different times. Involve your families, involve your children. And that's how a lot of our members came to be members of our church.
Yeah, it works the same for our schools and early learning centers. The majority of families are not members of the congregation and are not Lutheran. And so here they are going through your doors maybe 5 days a week, for hours, way more than somebody on a Sunday. And the opportunity to minister with and alongside them, you don't have to go any further than that. We're talking about how do you meet the needs of your local neighborhood. Well, if you have a school or early learning center, they tend to be more local because they don't want to drive for school. So they tend to be more local than the congregation members who are now driving a half hour away. And so the opportunity to be a place of faith for these young people and their families is huge. And so that idea of community commitment and being known, because oftentimes I've seen baptisms happen at schools and early learning centers where the pastor from the church, who is the pastor of the chapel service, who is their pastor, they may not come on a Sunday, but that kid wants to be baptized, and they want to be baptized in their preschool community. That's their faith community. And why not? So absolutely, we have these ministries already at our doorsteps that I think we can do more with.
Working with churches all over the country, I would say almost every time that church has an early learning center, a school, daycare, whatever you call it, it's always families from the neighborhood, and not always, but almost always completely different families than the families worshiping in that church for that very reason. And it's like so obvious to me when I come in and visit with them or just start to do an intake interview with that congregation that you have this opportunity right here. And even if it's like something where the school is even just renting the space, right? It's not a ministry of the church. I'm like, oh, well, do you do anything with them? No, they just rent it. And I'm like, and do those folks live nearby? Yeah. Oh, well, gosh, that's an opportunity. I wonder what would happen if, you just went over and said hi a couple times a week, or, gave them all a little gift at a certain time of year. And, here's a little prayer book, or here's this. And they're just like, oh,
we gave them offering envelopes and a mailer, and they seem mad, and I don't understand why.
I don't know.
I can't.
We gave them a pamphlet that said they need church, and they didn't respond, and I'm confused.
Did it have flames on the pamphlet?
It didn't talk about how, but it alluded to a burning.
Oh my God.
Sensation.
Oh no.
No, I think that's the real thing. My internship was in Austin, Texas, and we had the exact thing. Literally, our offices were in the hallway, and there's a space conversation, right? Like, because of what is required to be certain things, we couldn't use a good chunk of that church. But at the same time, my days started with walking in and hearing like full-on screaming. But it meant that this building was very alive. Yeah. And we did the once a week chapel. The parents were told we have pastors that are willing to do this. Then half the kids would say, yeah, we would love our kids to have that. But I think so we sing a couple songs and go from there. But it wasn't until we started doing a Wednesday night meal where some of those families would pick up their kids, come down, we would do it to go, and they would I'll take 3 meals, give us $5 for each meal, and then they'd walk out the door and say, thank you so much. And then once in a great while, some families would say, we're just going to eat with you guys. And that was some of the first time that I think our parish was meeting these families that, again, everybody in Austin was coming from outside of Austin or North Austin, and we're right by UT. But the families were, like you said, it's close
right
by.
there. Yep.
this is the closest place. It's nice. It's small. We love it. And it's like watching the interaction. It was like, I think this is the first time this has ever happened. It was like, oh. So I think I remember that, and yet I don't always know how to replicate it, and definitely don't know how to pitch it. I think that's the hard part for a lot of us, is going, how do I try to tell my church, who's so actively doing Sunday, that, hey, there's another world, and it's called 23 hours and 6 other days. That building could be something really magical.
Yep. Talk to me, Alex. I do this work.
Oh.
I could be a resource for you.
I'm just going
saying.
to give it all to AI.
Oh, gosh. So I'm wondering, is there anything in the midst of the research that was a surprise to you? That or just something that really stood out?
Well, churched, unchurched, and dechurched families are all looking for us to walk the walk. They're looking for justice. They're looking for service. They're looking for meaningful action. And so that's a huge connector piece for all of those families, especially the LGBTQ plus IA community responds to that sense of justice worked in a rightly so particular way. And so I think, however your church might already be doing justice work, maybe you don't even have to start something new. I know the congregation that I go to, we have 10 faithful women who come on Thursday and make 100-something quilts a year. Mm-hmm. And we get to see the fruits of their labor on one Sunday when we put them out on the pews, and you're just boggled by the work they've put in. But when you talk about, we didn't promote it. We didn't share it with our community. We didn't tell our neighborhood. We're not doing the work of sharing the justice, why we're doing it. These are going to refugees. Why are we giving them to refugees? Why are we, it's grounded in our faith. We're not doing any of that. So it's really unfortunate. It's this good work we're doing, but it's so insular. And so I think in terms of reaching young parents today, they want to be connected with some kind of service, justice work, and they can find that anywhere, but we can tell them why we do that work.
Yep.
And so that is something across the board, our schools, early learning centers, and congregations. It's a great connection for us to be doing together to reach young parents.
I love that. What a great connector.
Mm-hmm.
And we're already doing it. Let's just talk more about it, maybe.
Yeah, tell the story. I know every church sucks
maybe
at that.
do
Every
something
church
new,
sucks
but
at telling the story of the good things they're doing in the midst of their community, right? Because of the way that Jesus has loved them, right?
Yeah.
That this flows out of my love.
Yeah.
Is to love God's people and doing these things and living in this way. Ugh, yes. I'm in for it. I love it.
Can you tell us that we suck one more time?
I can't help it. I know.
No. I
The
think
church is terrible.
I grew up with brothers. I have a junior high humor. So it just, I am who I am.
I think it's
Alex.
It's calling it out correctly, though. Versus oh, no, you're doing your best. And it's sometimes your best sucks. And so I think that this hopefully is the challenge and the push to recenter, honestly. And then we're thankful for the work you do and thankful that there are spaces and you've done the research. And I think my hope is to memorize 2 numbers, pocket them, and have them ready for conversations
There
to
you go.
say, did you know? 4%. 4% do not, are the only people that go, ELCA, oh, yeah. And then the rest of the world is huh? Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Let's try to make it 5.
Hey, a percentage, yeah. Tell us again, Janelle, where they can find all of this good work for this research and the practical ideas and such. Where is that again?
So because it's a partner ministry with the ELEA, you can find it at elcaschools.org or at the website I curate, elcafaithformation.org.
All right, friends, go check it out and put all of this amazing research to good work in the midst of your congregations and neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you a little bit before I go about the grant that I just received on behalf of the churchwide organization. Just this past year, we received from the Lilly Endowment a 5-year, $1.25 million grant.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And it's called Curious Christian Children Reimagining Kids in Worship. And the idea is that over the next 5 years, we are going to pull together people who are doing some great ministry with young people and pick their brains and get us together. And then we're going to pull together people who want to do great things with young people and practice those things out. We'll have some scholarship money for them to try to implement those in those new places. And then by the end of 5 years, have a really great resource and several hundred trained people who have gone through this and who can be more local resources in their community. And so we're really excited about that. We're just getting off the ground now, but you can find out more about that again at elcafaithformation.org and other places.
That's how we get to the 5%.
That's right. That's right. There is a
Exciting.
plan in place, friends. So learn up, and then there'll be money, apparently. Well, not for everybody, for some.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Janelle.
Janelle.
This
Thank
is
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
Wonderful meeting you. Thank you. Wow, what a fantastic conversation. Thanks again to Janelle Hooper. And we look to hear much more about this fantastic grant opportunity that's coming out for congregations. Before we go, here are a few quick announcements and reminders for everyone. A reminder that as a Network Plus member, you have access to Martin's List. Martin's List is a shared resource website. Right now, it has 500 different resources that have all been created by children, youth, and family volunteers and professionals working in congregations just like yours. If you're looking for a retreat curriculum or Bible study activity for Pentecost or resources like this, go to martinslist.com. Log in and do a search. You're going to have to adapt it for your context, but that's the case for everything. And if you write or create something, be sure to share it on Martin's List as well. Others can benefit from the work you've done. If you're a fan of podcasts like ours, of course, Faith Listens is a podcast it's still fresh out the gate and it's awesome. It's from our colleagues and our best friends over at the Network's Formation Co-op. It's a limited series, and it's talking about the different things that the co-op is learning as it works with congregations on a new framework for ministry with young people. Search for Faith Listens wherever you get your podcasts, or go to elcayymnet.org/Faith Listens. Thank you to all of you who are members of the network. Your membership makes things like Third Tuesday Conversation, Oasis, Connect Journal, and Formation Co-op, and Martin's List, and Extravaganza, and much, much more possible. If you're not a member of the network, we encourage you to join. Our memberships are what makes all of this possible. We're grateful to be a community that cares for this ministry. Thanks so much for listening. New podcasts will be released on the third Tuesday of every month. Be sure to like and subscribe so you receive them as they come out, and share with your friends. And finally, thanks to Paul Amlin, the 3TC producer, for his work. Have a great week and look out for our next episode, of course, being released on the third Tuesday next month. This is Veronica signing out. And who do we have else signing out?
This is Jessica. We'll talk to you guys next month.
Is everybody else on this podcast? This is Alex signing out.
Bye, guys.
Bye.